8:35 on a Friday. Happy late Friday, everybody. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Kieran Smith, call me Q, and we are on the corner. We are on the corner. What is up, everybody? So, I hope everybody is having a good Friday thus far. Where I'm at, it's raining, but that's okay because rain is my favorite weather. So that doesn't bother me at all. But for the rest of you guys, I hope you're having a nice, better weather than I am. Let's say that. Everybody doesn't like the rain. So with that being said, guys, I got a couple clips up for us to look at tonight. Not long clips per se, so I'm not going to do a lot of talking tonight. Last couple of days, I haven't really done a news-a-thon probably in about a week and a half, and that's really where I'm just kind of playing it, not doing too much commentary on it. Usually take the clips, at least one or two of them, and move them over to the next day and do some more interactive reacting. So tonight, I got a couple clips that we're going to go over. As an advocate for mental health and wellness, I like to tell you guys, please make sure that you're grounded and regulated before you take this in. Why? Because the news can be triggering. If you're not grounded and or regulated, please come back to watch this later. But if you are now, welcome to the live stream. And I'm going to jump right into what we're going to be digesting today. So first up on the menu, shout out to CBS Miami. Supreme Court lets Trump and legal protections for 500,000 migrants. All right, so it looks like they are going, that the Supreme Court ruled that the protections for about 500,000 migrants can pretty much, we could say, be lifted. And we knew that that was going to happen to some extent following Bill O'Reilly, following Sean Hannity. A couple of people have spoke about this. And really, President Trump has pushed back his whole entire administration and said, listen, we can't do due process for every single person because we would have to have over 1 million cases, and that can't happen. So we're going to take a look at that. Then we're going to switch gears. We're going to go over to Bill O'Reilly. Shout out to Bill O'Reilly. He's going to be talking to us about Pope Leo tonight. So Pope Leo the 14th. His title is the American Pope. So we're going to take a look at that. First time in history we've had an American Pope. And then we're going to switch gears and jump over to Kempire. Shout out to Kempire. For those of you that don't know Kempire on this channel, we love him here. We use him sometimes to react to certain things from culture because he does an excellent job on his commentary. He has Donald Trump considers pardon for Diddy. Ex-assistant's heated exchange with defense in day 13. So then we'll take a look at that. That clip is about over an hour and 13 minutes, but we'll probably only hang out there for about 20 minutes. Then you guys go over and give Kempire his due views. This one we're going to watch tomorrow. That's about J.D. Vance's interesting poll that he has on 2028. So we're going to take a look at that more so for tomorrow's live stream. But we're going to end tonight's live stream with a Christian clip from Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff Buell. This one's from Charlie Kirk tonight. Shout out to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk and I think his OnlyFans model go off about just, the adult industry, women selling their bodies on OnlyFans. So they had a message for men and women, and I thought it was a great message for me to share. We try to end the live stream with a Christian clip every single night. Not always when we do news-a-thons, but I try to make sure that they're most of the time, at least 95% of the time. All right, guys, so we're going to start off with the first clip. With all that being said, give me 1 second here. Shout out to the chat, guys. Do me a favor. Welcome to the live stream. Hit that like button for me, guys. All right, so we're going to jump into CBS News Miami first. Supreme Court lets Trump end legal protections for 500,000 migrants. This is going to be not great. Let's take a listen. Okay.
Now at 10, reaction continues to pour in after the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to revoke humanitarian parole protections for nearly 500,000 people. Good evening, I'm Lauren Pastrana. Jim Barry has the night off. These protections allow people from Nicaragua, Haiti, Venezuela, and Cuba to temporarily stay here in the U.S. CBS News Miami, Steve Majiri joins us live from Versailles in Little Havana tonight. And Steve, you spoke to people who will be impacted by this?
That's right there.
Okay, what the underrated asked me in the comments. He's probably not even in the chat anymore. But I can tell it's his first time jumping in because that's just a stupid question. Triple, shout out to you. What's up? Underrated. Do you think it's possible for any man to go the rest of his life without busting ever again? Absolutely, good sir. I do think it's possible. I'm sorry that you lack that discipline. I don't think that it's for everybody because as a Christian, I know that Scripture says that Singleness is actually a blessing, which means that it's not okay. So you are here. All right. So in scripture, it says that singleness is a blessing, right? So it's not something that every single person can do. So yeah, there are some men that have the capacity to not do things like that because they're more focused on the call that God's put on their life. They're deciding to live a life of celibacy, which takes extreme discipline. So for someone that spent 10 years in the Marine Corps, I can tell you this: discipline is not an easy thing when it comes to men and sexual things. It's not an easy thing, but it's not an impossible thing. So for a man that lacks discipline, he'll probably say something like absolutely not. But for somebody who understands what discipline is, and they can kind of they're okay with some type of restraint, then yeah, it's absolutely possible. Yeah, you are the only one. Well, you're not the only one alive right now, but you might be. A lot of people jump in and out. Remember, we do a lot of reaction here to news, so I'm not necessarily here to interact with my chat. Even though I do like to interact with you guys, sometimes I just can't because I'm more focused on making sure that the news gets out there. All right, so I'm gonna go back and play the clip.
Spoke to people who will be impacted by this.
That's right. There are people in South Florida that are in immigration detention centers waiting their next court hearing. They could now have their deportations out of the country expedited. And this was on the minds of many here along Southwest 8th Street as they were getting their Friday night food. Angel Medrano is from Nicaragua and says ending humanitarian parole hurts the chances of his fellow people finding a better life. This is a country of immigrants, a country where all of us have arrived as immigrants. This comes after the Supreme Court paved the way for the Trump administration to end humanitarian parole. It's a program created by the Biden administration that made accommodations for certain migrants to live in the U.S. if they're fleeing from countries in critical situations. Willard Hancock says he supports the president's plan to end the program.
A lot of the immigrants should be sent back or not protected under the law, as a lot of other immigrants are not. A lot of my family is not, so I don't agree that everybody should get a free ride.
Ramon Aguirre says he also agrees with the decision by the High Court, but hopes some migrants can get a second chance at staying in the country.
That maybe can take a look if they're right people or not.
Immigration attorney Willie Allen says he isn't surprised this happened.
One president creates an executive action, the next president can eliminate. Still, the least affected are the Cubans who can still apply for Cuban adjustment.
All right, and we did get a statement from the Florida Democratic Party about this ruling from the Supreme Court. They called this decision inhumane, a moral failure, and just a betrayal of American values. And it's worth noting that of the more than 500,000 people that could be impacted by this decision, more than 200,000 of them are from Haiti. Live on Southwest 8th Street, Steve Majiri, CBS News, Miami.
Wow, I'm pretty sure that's nerve-wracking. I have a lot of friends that are in the country, and I've said this before: people who are legal and people who are not of legal status. America's a big country, so it's not like people haven't been here for 20, 30 years illegally and they've never become residents. That actually does happen more than we probably care to admit. But I want to react to something this gentleman right here said.
This is a country of immigrants, a country where all of us have arrived as immigrants. This comes after the Supreme Court paved the way for the...
Okay, so no, sir. This is not a country of immigrants. It's absolutely not. This is just a country that does allow immigrants to seek asylum, though. So this is where a lot of this is getting testy in the media, because right now you have Marco Rubio. I mean, I look at him kind of right now like he's kind of like a guy in a scary movie to most people, right? Because when you see him talk live during his press conferences, people are really coming at him because of the things that they're saying. You know, they're like, Marco Rubio is just, he's really callous when it comes to foreign policy. You know, he's really taking advantage of the position President Trump put him in. And it's kind of the same thing I say about Tom Homan. I don't think either one of them are callous. I just think that they're very focused men. So having served alongside of other men and women in the Marine Corps, you know, you can just run into people who, like, their poker face is real serious. Like, they're not joking, and it doesn't mean that they can't laugh or they can't have fun, but it's like, that's just not their style. It's more like work hard and play later type of thing. And it's like, I'm okay with somebody that's like that at work. I probably prefer to work with someone that's like that. So that type of demeanor doesn't bother me. You know, you have people taking little clips of Marco Rubio saying things like, I'm going to continue to deport, you know, Chinese students or students with visas and things like that. And they're only taking like a small 15-minute clip, and they're taking it out of context. They're not ever putting in there, because I watch Marco Rubio say this often, they're not ever putting in there that if students come here on a visa and their interests don't line up with American interests, like, yeah, that's pretty much where it's going. We knew it was going to get to that point anyway, because some people are like, well, how could they be doing this? They're basically going to deport people who just don't have the same exact views as them. Countries do it all of the time. This is the thing, like, we live, I swear sometimes I say it all the time, we live in a fairy tale in America. And this really occurred to me after I did some traveling in the military. It's like, it's just not as free and as liberal in other countries as it is here. It's really not. So other countries deporting someone because their interests don't align up with their country's interests, this is not like an unheard thing. This is not something that is actually inhumane. Countries will do it. Just like Americans can go to other countries, and some of the things that immigrants come here and do. If we do that in other countries, we're going to get arrested. And it's going to be hard for us to come back to America. And we're probably gonna, the due process probably is gonna look crappy. Like, there's a lot of things that take place here. So when I see, like, the Supreme Court, like, saying it's okay for President Trump to do this, like, they're gonna lift this type of protection, the only reason why they would lift it, I think, would be more of an emergency situation, right? We know, no president has deported as many illegals as Obama has. No president has. I don't know why people don't do their research on this, but people really think that, you know, like, President Obama has never done anything wrong to any minority community, and he has, right? And some people say it wasn't wrong, right? So we can't say that about our sitting president. But no president has deported as many people as Barack Obama. And when he did it, we didn't necessarily see the Supreme Court lift the protections the way they're doing for President Trump. So some people might say, well, what gives? Why are they doing it? Well, it's because of how many people were let in the country based on the last administration. It was such a ridiculous amount. This is why Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, President Trump, this is why they can fight Scott Bessent. They can fight this stuff, and they can say, Your Honor, there's absolutely no way we can give every single person due process here. If that's the case, we will get none of the people out of the country by the time the president exits office, right? So I can understand why something like this would have happened. I don't think that it's great. You know, I think it sends a lot of people into panic, and it does give a lot of people anxiety, and it stricts fear into a community. But, you know, it's a hard pill to swallow. But when you're listening to Tom Homan, Marco Rubio, certain people say, listen, you had this time to be in the country, you didn't do the right thing. Some people are like, I tried to do the right thing, there was no pathway. So it's like they would need to show that they've at least been trying, right? So it doesn't look like they're just here breaking the law. The self-deportation thing that people are asking me about, I put it to you like this. It's so funny, because I knew this would come with American Joe's gonna get such a mixed emotion. You know, some people are mad because they're like, I can use that $1,000 to do this, or you should be giving that money to Americans. But then you have some people on the same wavelength saying, like, why aren't we getting the migrants out of here faster? Well, I mean, if they're gonna give the money to get back faster, and possibly there's even some left when they get to their country, I don't oppose anything like that. That's better than kind of just shipping them off or sending them in any type of condition and just like, yeah, good luck, go. This is the reason why about 500,000 children are missing now when Kamala and Joe Biden were in office, because no one was monitoring anything. It was just like, open borders, do whatever you want, and then like 500,000 children go missing and they don't even get questioned about it. So I mean, it's disgusting, right? Like, so at this point, if they're going to give them $1,000 to go back home, and they're going to get back there safe, they're going to have their kids, and then they can restart the reentry process into the United States, but the correct way, I really don't have any objection to that. But you have a couple of people who they really don't like that, and they're kind of mad that the government's giving away the $5,000 sub. I'll tune in tomorrow if you go live. Much respect and thanks. All right, Underrated, shout out to you. Thanks for stopping by, man. I'll see you tomorrow. What did Bruno say? Let me shout out to Bruno. Bruno, yo, shout out to you. Restraint can be achieved by having respect for yourself. Absolutely. It can be. It's just not enough. Like, there's plenty of people that have respect for themselves and they watch 7 hours a day of adult film. So I don't think if someone does that, they don't have respect for themselves. I think that they have a very low level of respect for themselves, and they might not even understand what that looks like, meaning that they don't have to abuse their body. There's plenty of people that can respect their body to an extent, right? So they might say something like, well, I'll never sell my body, or I'll never have sex for money. So in that way, they're like, yeah, I have some boundaries there, but it's okay for me to watch 4 hours of, adult entertainment because I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just by myself. So yeah, I do think that to some level, discipline can be obtained by self-respect, but not a high level, not at all. Because there's people who think they have some type of regard for themselves, and they still do screwed up things, not even to just themselves, but to other people. All right, guys, so we're going to switch gears and we're going to go over to Bill O'Reilly. Shout out to Bill. We love Bill on the channel. He's talking about the American Pope, Pope Leo the 14th, the first American Pope. So Bill O'Reilly is going to give us a bit of a backstory on Pope Leo. Let's take a listen. The American Pope.
Pope died at 7:35 this morning, Monday, in Rome. And he was 88, as I mentioned.
This is when it first happened.
And people were shocked because of yesterday's Pope Mobile appearance. And he looked very clear-eyed as he walked around and greeted everybody, and they were ecstatic. I was in Vatican City, I think it was 81 on Easter Sunday. It's an amazing thing to be there. The Pope spent 17 minutes with Vice President Vance and gave his children, his small children, some chocolate eggs, and they had a nice conversation. It was not intense. The Vice President said that the Pope invited him. It was the Pope's invitation. So I guess Vance was the last outsider, famous person to talk with the Pope. I'd be interested to hear what the Vice President had to say about that conversation. He's in India now, talking to Modi, the Indian president, about the tariffs and all this stuff that's going on. All right, a little bit about the Pope. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, born in Flores, Argentina, right outside of Buenos Aires. Became a Jesuit priest in 1969. The Jesuits are the intellectual wing of the Catholic Church. It is a liberal group now. Back then, not so much. The Jesuits were involved in the movie The Exorcist, in the book. Okay? He was appointed cardinal in 2001 by Pope John Paul II. Now, in that time in Argentina, I was down there covering the Falklands War, so I saw it firsthand. It was ruled by a military junta coming off Juan Perón. There was no freedom there, really. It was a police state. And most of the people were poor, desperately poor, because the oligarchy in Argentina stole all the money. Very important for you to understand that. So what the cardinal saw, then subsequently the Pope, was massive poverty fueled by corruption. And he became a liberation theologian. And many, many Catholic priests who work in the third world are that. The problem that Jorge Mario had was that he put the blame on capitalism for the poverty, and that was wrong. There is an editorial in the Wall Street Journal stating that. It wasn't capitalism that was keeping the people poor, it was the corrupt administration, government in Argentina, run by a guy named Galtieri when I was there. And you had to fear him. Galtieri would have you killed.
They were scared of him, yeah. He was like a dictator.
And I don't think there were stories about, how the cardinal didn't do what he should have. A bunch of bull. All right, so then he gets to be Pope, and he comes on in. And 8 years ago,
So this makes sense. Like it makes sense that Bill O'Reilly is giving us this backstory because Gaultier, he was someone who was really feared by the people in Argentina. We wouldn't say that he was we wouldn't call him a beloved leader. Let's just say that he was someone who the people feared. Ruled with the iron fist. Like Bill O'Reilly said, he would have you killed. I very much felt like he was much more of like a dictator than he was anything else. I wouldn't call him not even like a prime minister or president or nothing. If he was the leader of Argentina at the time, he would have been, I would have called him their dictator. He was very much a man who liked to strike fear into people, and that's the way that he ran the country.
I almost to the day, I met him in a very brief conversation, but I was in his proximity for 2 hours. And I'm a reporter, and I watched every move the man made. And he dealt with hundreds of people. He was exceedingly kind and patient. And he was 80 years old. And my interaction with him was just a greeting, primarily, but he and I stared at each other for maybe 15 seconds after I said buenos dias. I addressed him in Spanish. And it was eerie. He didn't break my gaze. I don't know whether he recognized me or knew I was in the small group. I don't know.
Maybe he thought about killing you.
It was just as something came off of him. Okay.
Maybe he thought about killing Bill.
The Pope ran into trouble in America and some other European countries because of his, not sympathy so much, but promotion. I think that's a better word. He promoted illegal immigration in the sense that he said if you are a Christian, you have to treat these people with dignity. That was everything. Now, on December 31st,
Okay, so this is where it gets fun, right? So we know there's been a couple times where we've heard Bill O'Reilly talk about him being a Christian, right? Or at least him professing his faith. And he says he's an evangelical Christian. And he says he promoted immigration in a sense where he told these people that if you were a Christian, you have to treat these people with dignity. Now, I was hoping he didn't go that route. I was hoping he was going to say something a little bit more overzealous, but hold on. Let's see. I mean, there's a couple. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to read from? So he's using the fact that the Pope promoted it based on if you're a Christian. There are lots of things that there are lots of Bible verses that I can start from where the Lord tells you to honor people who are considered foreigners. And technically, we can look at the Bible verses that talks about loving your neighbor the same exact way. Because there is a story, I'm not going to say we know because I'm in a different setting right now. But there is a story in the Bible where there is a young, let's just say a young man of some stature during his time. And he asked Jesus about, protecting, who is his neighbor, basically. That's his second part of the question. He's basically asking Jesus, out of all the commandments that you're talking about, I followed these commandments since I was really young. So what is the most important one that I could follow? He's basically trying to get Jesus to get to the point. I know all of this. So what's the most important thing that I have to listen to? And, Jesus says, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor. And then the guy replies, well, who is my neighbor? And then Jesus goes into this story. So he's telling the story about a man who was beat up, and there are 3 people essentially that encounter this man. The first 2 people would be people that you could say are considered to be people that work inside of a church or some type of ministry or do some type of work for God. And then the third person that encounters him was a foreigner that actually ended up taking care of him, taking him in, and just aiding to him until he was better, right? Paid for his stay and everything like that. So even if I just go off of that, and that story's in the New Testament, that's why that's the one that I chose to go with you guys. But there's plenty, and even if we go into the Old Testament, where I mean, where do we go from? We could go in Genesis, where Genesis 23:4, he says, "I am a stranger and an alien residing among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, so that I may bury my dead out of my sight." And this is in reference to, this would be someone who's not from the land that's asking for this type of favor. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. That's in Deuteronomy 10:19. So this would be God instructing his own people to be a certain way towards foreigners amongst their land, or that come amongst them, because they were once foreigners when they were slaves in Egypt. So he tells them, he doesn't say treat these people with dignity. It says you shall love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt, right? The alien who resides with you shall be to you. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. That's Leviticus 19:34. So, some people might say, like, well, is the Lord meaning that, like, if the people come over here illegally and they're terrorizing the land? Of course not. That's not, the Lord wouldn't mean it from that type of sense. But what he's saying is that if you have people that are seeking refuge in some type of way, or they're coming to you for some type of asylum or sanctuary, you don't treat them like with an ill will behavior. Don't treat them as if you don't like them, you don't hate them, they're not citizens. They're someone that is to be disgusted. Treat them fairly, like treat them with dignity, love them as you would love a brother and a sister. So I just think it's interesting when Bill O'Reilly says the Pope kind of endorse immigration, because he's telling people, if you're a Christian, you have to treat these people with dignity. Well, of course we have to treat them like that as Christians. That's what God commands us to do, right? And that's only because we weren't. So if someone says, all right, Q, well, that makes sense when God is talking to his own people in the Bible, right? When Jesus might be talking to, and Jesus is not only talking to Jews in the New Testament when he does this, right? Matthew is somebody who's recording this, and I like to call Matthew the person who spoke to, like, let's say God's old age friends, right? This is the way I've like addressed Matthew before in scripture. He and that's just the way he presents his gospel. So yeah, we are said to be like that, because Jesus is telling his audience, he's addressing the audience and saying, hey, this is how you are to be with the foreigner. In the Old Testament, God is telling his people that. But there are plenty of times when the Gentiles are also being instructed to be a certain way towards people, because they've been grafted into the family of God, right? And we weren't always adopted. We weren't always a part of that. So because we weren't always a part of that, we know how to treat somebody that's not in the family of God, someone who's a foreigner. So I just want to make that clear. Like, the Pope probably was emphasizing much more than just treating them with dignity. But I just thought the play on words that Bill used when he says he's kind of, for lack of better terms, endorsing immigration, because he's telling the Christians, hey, you have to treat these people with dignity. Of course we do. It doesn't matter if they're from our country or not. As Christians, God expects us to, and he commands us to treat all people with a certain type of level of dignity.
2019. 5.5 years ago, here's what I said.
As for Pope Francis himself, he is a liberation theology guy. He lives in a world where religion, Christianity, and Catholicism are there to improve the plight of the poor. You must understand where he is coming from. That is his mission. The poor. Help the poor, the downtrodden, the incarcerated, the migrants. Help them, help them, help them, help them. It does not go against Christianity. It does not. The only problem with Pope Francis is he gets into trouble when his solutions make the poverty and migrant problem worse and hurt good-minded people, which he has done. The Pope has done that. Remember, when the Pope spouts a political opinion that had nothing to do with theology, he's not infallible, it's not dogma, it's not any of that. It's just his opinion as an Argentinian cleric, which is what he is. I like him. I think he's a sincere man. I think he tries to help people. And that's my bottom line for Pope. I don't need Winston Churchill in there.
So I think that's the most accurate assessment you're ever going to get on Pope Francis. Now, if he's not in heaven, then it's all for me, okay? But, and there is that but, he didn't analyze the migrant movements in a way that I believe was effective, number one, or responsible, number two, not.
Well, those are not reasons somebody would go to hell, so that doesn't matter anyway. Not that Bill O'Reilly is saying that, but those are not reasons why Pope Francis wouldn't have made it to heaven, so.
I guess I'm committing a sin here calling a former pope irresponsible, but he wasn't actively trying to do that, but he couldn't see the big picture. And you'll remember his quote about the Trump administration, you have to build bridges, not walls. Well, you got to obey the law, Your Holiness. I wish I had been able to, I was close to getting.
God, I'm so dead. He said Your Holiness. Okay, Bill, I get it. It's funny, he says, I guess I'm committing a sin by saying the Pope was irresponsible. And I'm like, oh man, you have to love people that have a legalistic view of God, right? Like he thinks he's committing a sin because he's saying the Pope was irresponsible, but it's like, dude, you could be committing a sin by talking crap behind your friend's back. Like God, that's called slander. God doesn't like that either, right? So I just think it's funny, like the level of legalism I could hear coming out of him.
An interview with him, and I wish I had, because that's what I would have said. You gotta obey the law. The law is there for a reason, to protect people. You can't just say, I don't like this law, because it hurts some poor people, and it does. Our exclusion of everybody in the world who's poor hurts people. If they could come here, they'd be a lot better off. That's true, but we can't do it. We can't afford it. We can't supervise it. We can't assimilate it. No nation could on this earth. That's the truth.
I want to buy your house. I can pay you cash.
The new Pope. So I think we'll lead with that tonight. I do not know Cardinal Robert Francis Provost. All right, he is from Chicago. He is a protege of the Cardinal of Chicago. And he looks like a good guy to me from my initial research, but I don't know him. I don't know anyone who does know him because he hasn't been in America for 10 years. So he was the leading Catholic cleric in Peru. In fact, he holds Peruvian citizenship as well as American citizenship. Two passports. Yep. 69 years old, born in Chicago. First American Pope in history. I hope that's a good thing. He looks like a good guy to me, just watching his demeanor when he came out on the Vatican balcony and greeted the folks. And here's what he had to say. Roll it.
The Pope, who blessed Rome, gave his blessing to the world, to the entire world, that morning of Easter. Allow me to follow up on that blessing. God loves us. God loves everyone. Evil will not prevail. We are all in the hands of God. Therefore, without fear, united, hand in hand with God and amongst ourselves, let us go forward.
I like the line, evil will not prevail. I like that line. So I'm going to send him a copy of Confronting Evil, my book that'll be out in September.
It's a Bible verse.
Now, the new Pope, if you don't read Roman numerals, he is Leo the 14th. All right? My Catholic school upbringing drummed that into my head. I got those Roman numerals. So he was active in the USA in the early part of his career, 1982 to 85. And then from 2000 to 2014, The rest of the time he spent in Peru and Rome, and he had a good position in Rome, and that he was friendly with Pope Francis, who of course was an Argentine. And Peru is right across the continent. Now Peru is an interesting country, very poor, not as destable as Colombia, Venezuela, even Argentina and Brazil, but there's a big gulf in Peru between the wealthy and the poor. And I think you're going to see a lot of sympathy for the poor from the new pope. Now, he was educated in Villanova, Philadelphia, bachelor of science degree in math. He's got to speak a bunch of languages. I know he speaks Italian, English, and Spanish. I'm trying to track down the other language. He's 69 years old, as I said. And it looks like, from the just cursory view that he is a good choice. Now, why should you care if you're not Catholic? Because on this planet, there are very few institutions devoted to try to spread peace on earth, goodwill to men. You don't have a lot of that going on, do you? And you can pick apart the Catholic Church. That's not hard to do. It's run by men. A lot of those men are evil, okay? And we saw that over the past few decades. But the theology is pretty solid, in my opinion. That's why I am a Catholic. But we need, some kind of tempering of the evil that we see every day. And the totalitarians, like the Chinese, they don't want the Catholic Church. Putin says he's an Orthodox, Russian Orthodox adherent, but he's not. He's a murderer. He's a killer. And the Pope really can't do anything about those guys. If you read Killing the SS, you'll see what the Pope came up against when he tried to temper Hitler. Okay, and it was impossible. So these bad, evil people, they override the good people, but we still need to hear from the good people. And that's why the Pope's story is important. And, if I find somebody denigrating my religion, I speak up. I don't let it go. And I know that we are a secular country. I'm not a holy roller. I don't proselytize on this program. I tell you, who I am, what I do, why I believe what I believe. But I'm optimistic that this Pope will be a positive force for humanity. And I think that's what we need, okay? And I'll have more on Monday as we delve into this. But I think it's a positive all around, even if you don't believe. All right, the Pope. So he invites the media in. All right, I understand. Worldwide media, which is not much better than the American media. The American media is as corrupt as it's ever been in the entire history of our country. Oh, yeah. And you know what? I've tried, how many times do I have to prove it? Okay, so the Pope invites everybody in at the Vatican's Nervi Hall today and says this. Go.
The Church recognizes in these witnesses, I'm thinking of those who report on war, even at the cost of their lives, the courage of those who defend dignity, justice, and the right of people to be informed. Because only informed individuals can make free choices.
And that's true. That's why we do so well here. So our goal is to inform you honestly. Now, the Pope speaks English, but he was speaking in Italian, which I thought was a mistake. Because most of the media in the world, because of social media and the internet, is English. Why are you speaking Italian? For what? Most international reporters speak English, but that's nitpicking. But he's right. I mean, we need an honest, vibrant media. And I've been in war zones. I've been at risk. And I did it to try to get you information.
To watch the full episodes of the No Spinu.
Yeah, so what do we think about Pope Leo so far? The things I've heard so far, I know his homily was great. I love the way he spoke during that. Some of the things he brought up. I know he talked about the Apostle Peter. I know he talked about humility. I did get a chance to watch that, so I did appreciate that. Again, like I said, Bill O'Reilly, he says that he's a Catholic, so and he's talked about his faith before, but again, I could hear a little bit of legalism in there, and I get that because every person is their own individual person. So when you encounter scripture, it's what the Lord is whispering to your heart, and he's gonna ask the same question that he's asked people in scripture before. When you read the text, like, how do you see it? How do you take it? Right? And then this is how you walk with the Lord and you begin to learn the heart of God, because he shows you, like, okay, you have one way you look at it, and God can show you another way to look at it, and then another way and another way, because the Bible is a living book, right? So it can constantly be teaching us things. So I just thought it was interesting there how Bill I could see how, like, he doesn't like the whole immigration approach that the Pope uses, but I mean, come on, Bill. To his defense, he is going off the Bible, and the Bible is very clear on telling us how we have to treat the foreigner, right? How we have to treat the migrant person. So he's not really saying that. When the Pope is saying things like that, he's not pushing a liberal agenda at all. At that point, he's actually pushing a very much God ordained agenda. Now, coming in the country the right way, making sure you have your papers, rite of passage, you're checking in with the people you need to be checking into, you're paying taxes, you're trying to get your status right. All of that stuff is important. All of those things would be things God would care about, right? Because we still have to do our part as being responsible citizens that submit ourselves to governing authority, Romans 13, right? So that still matters if people come here and they're doing the wrong thing and they end up getting deported. But how we're treating them while they are here is very important. It's very important. So that's the reason why the Pope would be saying something like that. All right, guys, let's switch gears now. Shout out to Ken Pyre. I want you guys to go check out his channel when you get a chance. That's KEMPIRE. Ken Pyre, we have been following Ken Pyre follow the Diddy trial, chiming in on his findings, what sticks out to him, what doesn't. I like Ken Pyre because he's very diligent, he's very observant. So a lot of the things that he's pointed out over these last couple of days have helped me a ton. So we're going to watch this, probably about a 20-minute clip, 25 maybe, because it's over an hour and 13 minutes. So we're not going to watch the whole thing. And then you guys are going to jump over to his channel and give him his due views. So let's take a listen.
This is day 13 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, and we have a lot to still unpack. And I have to tell you, the testimony from victim 4, aka Mia, a former personal assistant, a woman that claims not only did Diddy overwork her, he also SA'd her.
This is Pod 5, the first fully immersive sleep system. Intelligent.
Multiple times. And here's the thing, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what's been playing out today and what played out yesterday, I don't know if she has, and maybe we find out today, if she's filed a civil lawsuit against Diddy. Maybe she's one of the Jane Doe that has filed a lawsuit against him. But if she hasn't, it says to me what she said in yesterday's testimony, that she planned on never talking about this, going to the grave with this.
Yeah, she meant
her story is quite traumatizing. And as always, I'm just going to give a trigger warning at the very beginning of this, because one thing I found when we were covering the story is that so many of you have been in DV situations, you've been SA'd. So I know stories like this can be traumatizing. And what we're trying to do at our best on these daily updates is to give you a summary and not the full details of what she's saying. However, I do want to ask the community whether or not you like when I add, depending on the testimony. I haven't done this for every testimony, but for people like Capricorn Clark or Cassie, I have read some of the questions and testimony specifically from some of the journalists inside the courtroom. So you guys will let me know. I will do that for today, but for next week, let me know if you just want the summary, the way that I do it, or do you want, depending on the witness, do you want me to get into the nitty-gritty of it all? So I was just double checking. Look, when I go to the side, I'm just double checking the sound is working, because one thing I will also say, yesterday, I was done by 4:30 when it came to recording and updating and ready to upload it. I had issues downloading it and then trying to upload it there. And then you saw yesterday part of the video for 4 minutes. 4 minutes. It was just black, but you still had audio. I just decided, I was like, I'm just gonna put this out because at that particular point, it was like 7 o'clock in the evening. I was already dealing with this for 3 hours almost. And I appreciate, shout out to all of you that have been sending love and thanks for our daily updates on this. But it's still very frustrating because you already know earlier in the week, maybe it's just one of those weeks. Earlier in the week, we had the sound issue and I had to re-record an entire recap, but I had to abbreviate it because at that particular point, my voice was just done. Sidebar, I need to grab some water, so let me pause. And if you hear, because I noticed in the other video too, if you hear sirens and things like that, I live in New York City. I live in the heart of New York City. I have ambulances near me. I have a hospital near me. I have a fire department near me. The police always have their sirens on when they want to run through a red light. All of you have not complained about any of those things, so I'm just saying that because you guys know I like to present to you in a very professional way, as if I am in the Kempire Studios. This is my studio. But you also get, I'm working on it. I'm working on getting our daytime talk show so we can talk real talk in a very professional way. But look, I appreciate all of your patience and understanding. I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. So let me just regurgitate, for lack of a better word. Oh, before we get into that, I know a lot of you probably, because the YouTube algorithm has not shown you. Maybe you're not subscribed, or maybe. And let me tell you, you just never know if you're going to vibe with someone. On my other accounts, not the main account, it was on the Kempire Daily account. And let me tell you, you just never know if you're going to vibe with someone or if they're going to be able to really vibe with our community and really be able to explain things in layman's terms. And based on everyone's reaction already, you guys enjoyed our conversation. You felt like you had a better understanding of what's happening in this case. We went into jury selection. We went into would Kempire be a good juror? She said yes. I'm glad though, because one of the things that you've been wanting to understand this process legally from a legal mind. I'm going to cite it in this video again, in the description, live chat, I'll be posting it as well. Go watch it. Or listen to it on the Kempire podcast. It's available there as well. Such a poignant conversation, so educational. I have more conversations coming up with other minds that are going to give different perspectives on the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Let's get into the Sean Diddy Combs trial. And as I mentioned before, any I'm going to try and get rid of those as much as possible. However, there's only so much editing I can do, especially when I'm trying to churn these out to you guys. And it's a Friday. Come on now. I really should say, and it's a Friday. I've already done so many things already today, but I've been keeping an eye on this case. I just want to give you a little bit of what NBC News wrote yesterday in regards to what played out in court, because that's a whole other side when it comes to, it's not just the testimony, it's the prosecution and the defense battling their case around with the judge in regards to how they would like to proceed and what they need. And one thing that I learned from our conversation with Kirsten was the fact that the reason why they're bringing up mistrial multiple times is for future reference when it comes to their appeal. Again, you will learn so much from that video. That video should have like 100,000 views, because if you really want an understanding of what's happening, you're going to get a better understanding. She breaks it down in such a fantastic way. I'm not just saying that so y'all can watch my video. No, I'm listening to it again because I'm like, there were so many little gems. But let me get to this. So some of the last notes I didn't get to yesterday. Envy says that Mia ended her testimony for the day, telling jurors that the essays she says that she was subjected to were, quote, the most traumatizing moments of her life. For those that missed it yesterday, Mia is a former personal assistant to Diddy. Mia is not her real name.
They're keeping it secret.
She's also known as Victim 4 in this indictment. When the prosecutor, Smizer, asked why she agreed to testify, Mia said, because I have to tell the truth, the whole truth. The witness said that she absolutely did not want to discuss these attacks in public. She's so brave. And I know there will be people that will make excuses for Diddy. I don't have words for those people, but she is so brave. We were talking about the bravery of Cassie Ventura testifying in front of her abuser.
Pregnant too.
8.5 months pregnant at the time. Crazy. She's now given birth, for those that may miss that update. But this is also another brave person, a victim, but also an employee. The witness said that she absolutely did not want to discuss these attacks in public. It's the most traumatizing, worst thing that ever happened to me, she told the jurors. The jury was then dismissed for the day at that particular point. But wait, NBC reports that said defense attorney Mark Agnafilo suggested his side's case might take longer than expected after receiving notice from the prosecution about changes to their presentation. Agnafilo did not give any specifics, but suggested the government's case might end sooner than anticipated, which could then cause the defense to go longer. The judge has made it clear, Judge Aaron Subramanian is not playing when it comes to time. And it could be because tax dollars, it could be because of the jurors' time. He has made it clear he wants the jury to begin deliberations around July 4th. Agnafilo also reminded the judge that the defense is still seeking to have more time with Combs during off hours. Because remember, yesterday I reported to you, the jail will not permit Diddy to meet with his attorneys past 7 p.m. So the judge said yesterday that he was going to reach out to the Bureau of Prisons or whatever, and see if they could have that extended to at least 10 p.m. Agnafilo reminded the judge that the defense is still seeking to have more time with Combs during off hours, and Subramanian said that he's working on it. All right, so that was yesterday's update at the end of the day. We have some more updates from our friends over at NBC. So they remind us for today's preparation that victim 4, who's being identified in court only as Mia, is set to return to the stand today after an exhausting day of testimony, to the point where Mia at certain particular points put her head down. She was hyperventilating, according to reports. They said that Mia said that she feared Combs' power and wanted to take these traumatic experiences to the grave. She said, "I was going to die with this," she said yesterday. "I didn't want anyone to know, ever." Wow. And at certain particular points, and you'll hear that in her testimony today, is that he would threaten her job. He would threaten to tell Cassie, because she had become so close with Cassie. He knew that. He would threaten to tell Cassie, like, "Oh, we were intimate." Mind you, she didn't want to be intimate with him. The judge rarely passes up a chance to remind the lawyers of his goal of wrapping up the case around the 4th of July. And by all accounts, in the early days of this trial, both sides reasonably hopeful that they could have the jurors deliberating by around July 4th. Mind you, it's not even June yet. But defense lawyer Mark Agnafilo wanted to remind the judge on Thursday that if the prosecution rests ahead of schedule, the defense case could still stretch forward to the 4th of July. "It's fair for you to raise, so I'm not raising expectations," the judge said. Okay. So they give us a recap of what happened yesterday. I won't go through that. Again, if you want to hear everything that happened yesterday, be sure to check out yesterday's recap that we did here, along with the video that we did with Kirsten Brown, a prosecutor from Los Angeles County. All right. So the witness became emotional. They talked about that from yesterday. We already talked about that. They talked about the lawyer's arrival. They also talk about the court being in session. So let me go through this summary, and then I will go back and forth in regards to the cross-examination with, matter of fact, I'll do both. I'll do both. Okay, so the defense continued its call for more time to meet with Combs outside courtroom hours, and the U.S. District Judge appeared to say that there might not be much more he can do to help.
Wow.
The judge said that he could have Combs available to his lawyers for up to 90 minutes in the morning, following at 7 a.m. courthouse arrival, and then for another 2.5 hours after the jurors are sent home. Those hours are already maxing out the U.S. Marshal Service, the judge added. Defense attorney Mark Agnafilo said that his side can't properly show Combs' documents and exhibits in his holding space. Subramanian said that he appreciates Combs' unique needs and will try to get more time and space for the defense. But at some point, the defense might have to accept it's getting more time with Combs than almost any other federal defendant. This is what I'm about to say. It's like, this is not something new.
Yeah.
Where you have a defense team, a defendant that's in court, and you have to be subjected to these time constraints. So he's not special.
Yep, nope.
But the judge did try. Mia has returned to the stand wearing a cream blouse and white jacket for a second day of direct examination. This is coming from our friends over at Inner City Press. We appreciate them. I was also checking out the Shade Room. They have someone in the court, and they're also on X reporting some of what they're observing and hearing in the court. I really do like how Inner City Press is covering this case. Again, this is not a transcript. This is his sort of paraphrasing of what he's hearing in court, okay? And there's so many elements that I end up finding out later. Oh, this was said in court, and this was not said in court. Like when it came to Capricorn Clark revealing on the stand a settlement where the defense said, didn't you reach out to Diddy in 2021 about, and you wrote him this letter, and Capricorn on the stand, and I got this from Lauren LaRosa from The Breakfast Club, and she says on the stand, that's not from 2021, that's from 2012. And she says it was a letter that was a part of a settlement that she received. And I'm thinking, remember we showed you a video in an interview with Suge Knight. Suge Knight said that she had received like $1 million in a settlement. So I'm wondering if it had to do with that. I'm assuming, I don't like to assume, but I'm telling you it's an assumption. I don't know that for fact. But she says that the letter that the defense is bringing up was from 2021. Well, they're saying it's from 2021. She says no, it's from 2012, a settlement. And they were like, oh. And she said that she's the one who wrote that letter. And he just signed his name to it, where she had asked in that settlement for a recommendation because she could not find work because there was so much. There were so many names that have been brought up in this case. And Jimmy Iovine telling her, leave the Diddy situation alone. Diddy and was it Andre Harrell showing up at CAA where she was meeting with CAA for a possible position. They're showing up there telling her to leave this alone. On the stand yesterday, Mia talked about how Diddy and, I won't say HR, Diddy basically asked her to lie when it came to other people that were trying to accuse Diddy of harmful behavior. And they specifically wanted her to say, she did this to me. Asking her to lie. Again, I'm always going to cite my conversation with Kirsten Brown because there's a lot of context and understanding in regards to the charges that are being brought against Diddy. But those that keep saying, oh, it's just DV, they keep bringing up DV. Well, no, there are elements of RICO that they're talking about.
Yeah, elements.
All right. Let's get into some of the transcript. I'm going to read this as much as possible because I feel like it adds a lot of context. You guys will let me know again in the live chat whether or not you like this or not. Okay, but before we do that, today's live is brought to you by our friends over at Factory Meals. As a busy day like today where I've had so many appointments already, these things is the amount of times some of us, myself included, will use the words okay. So I try to eliminate some of that. So if you see like glitches in the editing, just because I'm trying to eliminate some of that for those that are listening to this later, okay? I'm trying my best, okay? All right, but I appreciate all the love, I do. All right, so Inner City Press reports this. So Combs's attorney, they have a little back and forth in the morning before the jury comes out. AUSA, were you and Matt able to hang out together normally? Let me go back. The AUSA says first, did you call the other employee's family? Mia says, yes, I was surrounded by them and everyone referred to each other that way. You dated an employee? She says, yes, Matt, the sound engineer, which is what we found out yesterday. Were you and Matt able to hang out together normally? Mia says, no. We had an apartment together in New York, but we were rarely there at the same time. Why did you go to South Africa? Puff told me to accompany Cassie. She was shooting a movie. What happened there? Cass had caught Puffy cheating on her with Gina, which a lot of people are wondering if Gina's going to testify. She was devastated. AUSA says, what were her interactions with Mr. Combs? Sidebar, for those that don't know who Gina is, Gina was one of the people that did an interview with Tasha K 5 years ago, claiming abuse, physical abuse from Diddy. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's one of the victims. There's speculation that she's like victim 3, I think they said. But I don't know. There are rumors that she might be missing, that allegedly she may have been paid off. I don't know if any of that is true. That is speculation. Yeah. One of the things that we also told you is that the prosecution is unsealing their witnesses little by little for the world. What we learned from Kirsten is that the defense fully knows who the prosecution has on their witness list. So she says Cass had caught Puff cheating on her with Gina. She was devastated. What were her interactions with Mr. Combs? They were on the phone. He was in Miami. Then she stopped answering the calls. I'll read the blue messages. AKK, Miss Curran, and you read the gray. That's you. She wrote, PD, Puff Daddy, wants to talk to you. Who's that? Mia says, Puff. Audio call not completed. I wasn't answering the calls, but I spoke with Puff. He threatened to unalive me, I'm gonna say. I'm changing certain words because of YouTube.
Another spiel for overnight boarding. Your pet will stay overnight in your sitter's home and not only be treated like part of the family, but treated like it.
AUSA says, what else did he threaten you with? He said that he was firing me. He said that I had to leave and fly back, and he threatened to unalive me. Miss Curran wrote, I need to talk to her. Not sure what to do. He needs to call you to call him now, or you don't have a job. This is what Christina Curran is saying, his chief of staff. What else did he threaten you with? He said that he was firing me. He said that I had to leave and fly back, and he threatened to unalive me. Can we read that? How did it make you feel? Mia said desperate, terrified, and really sad. Did you answer KK's calls? No, I text back that I had been asleep. It sucks to wake up to this every morning. I'm being ish on all sides. I'm in a effed up spot. And what was KK's answer? She wrote, can you call me when you get a chance? I wrote, I'm having anxiety attacks and night fears. AUSA says, about who? Puff. Who are these WhatsApps with? Puff, I screenshotted them. I had other phones since. What did Mr. Combs write? If you call me in 2 minutes, I'm gonna tell everything. You're fired. Okay. And then according to her, he says, F ABC and their lawyers, let's go to war. What do you think he meant by tell everything? Mia says, he tell Cassie about the essay. What do you think he meant by FABC? Mia says, I had written a show based on my life as an assistant. It hit the press the most I ever got. He was threatening to take that away. I don't even remember any of this. One of the things we did learn was the fact that she was working with him in Revoked Films. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, because that was her aspiration. Did the show ever air? Mia says no. What did he write now? She says, call me now, now. Then don't ever call me again. I wrote back that I'd been asleep. Is that the end of the screenshots? Mia says, yes. What's this? She says, my email to Puff, then to KK. What did you write? I'm really sorry, Puff. You know I love you, smiley face. I paid for my own flight. It will cost to change it. I'm sorry to ask for money. I'm sorry. I want to make sure you're good. At the end of the day, regardless, I love you. Why did you send this? He told me to return, then he told me to stay. I couldn't afford the change fees. I told him Cece, which we've learned is Cassie Combs, as they would like to refer to her, says that she really needs me right now, but of course I'll do whatever you want. I love you. Who is Cece? Cass. Why did you write this? Mia says, because I worked for him. To him, that's all that mattered. Why did you CC Miss Curran? Because I needed an answer. I was in limbo. When you got back from South Africa, where did you work? The office in LA. Did you have less access to Mr. Combs? Much less, she said. Did it make your job easier or harder? It made it almost impossible. I needed his okay for everything, but I couldn't get any responses from him. How did it make you feel? Defeated. What is this? A note for HR to me. What was the date? March 31st, 2011. Miss Miser, can we take the document down? I think it needs further redaction, the judge says. What was happening? Mia says, I was suspended without pay. What happened? He came in and didn't see I have laid all the options out. He started ranting. I tried to point to the other options. Who was this with? James Cruz. He worked for Puff in a managerial role. He asked for tickets. I wrote back, Puff is currently firing me now. Right now. He wrote back, laughing out loud. I wrote back, no, seriously, sad face. What is this? Email D-Rock to me, March 25th, 2011. D-Rock asked what happened. D-Rock is gonna have to testify. Where is D-Rock? Mia wrote, I wrote he went bat-ish crazy about his shirt. Where was Puff? With D-Rock going to the doctor and some other errands, I asked D-Rock to give me a heads up before they came back so I could be out of the way. What did HR tell you? Puff wanted me suspended without pay. And I was, Mia said, Mia, does this memo document the reasons you were suspended? Mia says, no, HR told me Puff said I was being insubordinate. The crazy part to me, because we always talk about you should document some of this stuff with HR, but we also have said that HR isn't your friend, they're really the friend of the employer. And this is a clear example of that. Because HR has been brought up multiple times in different testimonies.
Yep.
Mia says, yes. How did that make you feel? So sad that I did something wrong. Did you continue working for Mr. Combs? Mia says, yes. Did you feel you could leave your job? That wasn't a thought. I had tried to run away before and it didn't work. Did you feel that you could get another job? Oh no, he would have made sure. Important for us to talk about that.
Yep.
Mia says, I was scared of him. When did you try to run away from your job? New Year's 2010 to 2011? Where were you? Mia says St. Bart's. Who was there? Me, Puff, Kim, the kids, and some others. Where did you stay? A yacht that Puff chartered. My gosh, because then you really can't go anywhere.
Yep.
What did Mr. Combs ask you to do? To count the money in the safe. He yelled I was counting too slow. He chased me out and told me, you better learn to walk on water like Jesus. B, get the F out of here.
Wow.
Whose job was it to count? Security.
Really, Puff?
Mia says, I asked the crew to take me to land, but it was a hurricane or something. I hid on the 3rd floor. Who spoke to you? Kim. She tried to console me and said, don't worry about it. I saw Puff coming toward me. I ran and hid in the crew cabin. Wow. Did the crew take you to land in a tender boat? Mia says yes, but then they got a call. I had to come back. See, and we talked about this too, and so many people say, oh, but he's such a good father. I can imagine the kids did not hear or witness some of the abuse that he was doing to his workers and his relationships. I can't imagine that they didn't see it or notice weird behavior from the people that he was working with or in a relationship with. So when people say, oh, but he's a good father, but I'm like, there are examples of, did the kids not see any of this at all? Because people like to think that kids are not aware of things, and they're fully aware.
And they know exactly what you're doing.
Did the crew take you to land in a tender boat? She says yes, but then they got a call. I had to come back. Were you able to leave the country? No, my passport was on the boat. Puff's staff had it. Did you go back to the boat? Mia says yeah. Holding on to her passport? Something to note, right, attorneys? She had no control of her own passport? Did the crew, okay, Mia says, I was told to get in a car to go on a plane to Vegas with Puff. In the car, could you hear Puff's call? He was telling his chief of staff.
That sounds familiar, right? Because we know that Cassie said she didn't have control of pretty much anything when she was with Puff. But Kim probably made a good point. Let me go back a little bit.
Oh, but he's a good father. But I'm like, there are examples of, did the kids not see any of this at all? Because people like to think that kids are not aware of things, and they're fully aware.
Right, and that's the thing. I totally agree with Kempire here because people think that they're not aware, and I say just because they can't articulate exactly what they're seeing, maybe they're too young, maybe it's confusing, maybe there's a lot going on. That doesn't mean that they're fully unaware, right? And it's interesting because we saw at least two of Diddy's sons get in trouble for probably was a year or two ago for allegedly essaying a girl on a boat. We did see that, like for allegedly essaying a girl on a boat. I think she was brought on there to do catering, and then something was slipped into her drink, and then some things happened. I don't know if there was actually intercourse that occurred or what, but I know that it was something with Diddy's son. I know Justin was involved, and there was someone else. I think this is still alleged, but when he's talking to the fact that, like, you know, people are doing things and they think that their children are totally unaware, it's like, where did his sons learn that, right? Because from what they're saying, one of his sons, they're saying that the girl there was saying that something was slipped into her drink, right? Now, she was there for Diddy and his sons. She wasn't there for Diddy, right? And she was actually brought there to cater. And because of her age, that's why I believe his sons were the ones that were around her, right? So where would they learn to do something like that? Or where would they get that idea? They had to hear something or see something at some point in time.
Did the crew take you to land in a tender boat? She says yes, but then they got a call. I had to come back. Were you able to leave the country? No, my passport was on the boat. Puff's staff had it. Did you go back to the boat? Mia says yeah. Holding on to her passport? Something to know, right, attorneys? She had no control of her own passport? Did the crew, okay, Mia says, I was told to get in a car to go on a plane to Vegas with Puff. In the car, could you hear Puff's call? He was telling his chief of staff I needed to be suspended, making up a story. I didn't get to finish. He yelled, shut the F up. You left Mr. Combs' companies in 2017? Lord, she worked for him a long time. Mia says, yes, I spoke with Brian Alford, we were editing the Bad Boy documentary. I was producing that. What did Brian tell you? That Mr. Combs wanted to end Revoked Films. The company was going away, which is important to her. How did you feel? I think I saw snot coming out of my nose for a while. I was worried. I had been told Revoked Films was the only company that hadn't made money this year. How did you feel? That I had done something wrong. What did Brian Offutt say? That they would work out severance, but it was the holidays. Did you speak to anyone else? She says, KK. I had a little bit of time to horrifically process what had happened. KK said, you're still working on the documentary. Did you? Yes, until March or April. What did you do after that? Cried myself to sleep. I ignored all the calls. Did you have conversations with Cassie after? I could never tell who was with or without Puff, so I didn't respond. KK says Puff couldn't believe I would go against him. I had gotten an employment attorney. KK said Puff couldn't believe it. Did you get paid? After 9 months, my attorney proposed a mediation. They asked for like 10 million. Okay, so now remember I said I wasn't sure if she got a settlement or something? Who came up with that figure? She says, my lawyers. Did you bring up the violent incidents? A few of them. I feel like I was doing something horrible. I was breaking the idea of confidentiality, telling secrets. I felt wrong and shameful. Did you bring up the essays? She says, oh no, I was going to die with that. How much did you receive? $200,000. Whoa, my lawyers got that much too. What was it for? Bonuses I hadn't been paid and out of pocket. Wow, so it was already money that she was owed. Would you return the money to have this never happen, to have never happened? Then Diddy's attorney says objection. Judge says overruled. She says, oh, absolutely. Do you have any other lawsuits against Mr. Combs? She says, no. $200,000 she received that she was owed, not for the pain and suffering that she had actually gone through and probably the therapy that she currently still needs. Did you contact Mr. Combs again when Kim died and when Andre Harrell died? Did you tell him you loved him in these messages? Mia says yes. That's how I would speak to him. Are you aware of Cassie's lawsuit? Yes, November 2023. Have you spoken with Cassie since the suit? She says yes. We talked a lot then, not. We both hid from our phones in the depression thing. Then a few days ago, just personal stuff, and I love yous. Did you speak about your testimonies? Oh no. That's important to know. They have to say that. They have to say the fact, yes, we've been in communication, but we did not talk about what we're going to say here. After the suit in November of 2023, did anyone contact you? Mia says, yes, D-Rock. He was like my big brother. You said, how are you? What did you respond? D-Rock, why are all the exclamation points? Cause I love exclamation points and D-Rock. Mia says, I understood D-Rock was no longer with Puff. He and his wife had a restaurant in the Poconos. He wrote, I'm about to call you. What date? November 30th of 2023. Did D-Rock call you? Mia says, yes. What happened on the call? Objection, Diddy's attorney say. Judge says, ask again. What did he say? Judge says, overruled. Mia says, he started with personal stuff. Then he said, the news is crazy. It wasn't like that. It was normal fighting. Was it? Mia says, absolutely not. D-Rock said, Puff misses you. He implied everyone agreed. So it feels like D-Rock was reaching out to her in order to do damage control, doing Diddy's dirty work. Mia says, I immediately thought, oh my gosh. Diddy's attorney says, objection. Judge says, grounds. Seal says, Diddy's attorney, non-responsive. Okay. All right, so where did D-Rock say he was? Mia says that he just landed in Miami. He was going to be at Puff. He was going to take care of Christian. D-Rock said, maybe you could say something. How did you respond? Mia says, I pretended I talked to Puff. Did you want to? No, I was scared. He called me right after D-Rock. How did you react? I threw my phone behind the couch and ran out. Damn.
I know, right?
Why? It was just so triggering. Did you hear from D-Rock again? She says, yes. What did D-Rock write? That your boy doesn't want you to do anything, just to talk. I didn't want to. I just wanted it to go away. What then did D-Rock write to you? He wrote, I can't believe you're not hitting me back. It was February 22nd of 2024. This is part of what the prosecution was talking about and why they had justifications for why they wanted Diddy to stay in lockup, in detainment.
Yeah.
She says, I knew he wouldn't stop, so I wrote back, I was scuba diving all day and didn't have my phone on the boat. Was that true? No. I told D-Rock I called Puff, but there was no answer. I wanted to play neutral. D-Rock asked, how can I send you something? What did you think he meant? Money. I said, no, I'm always ready to help y'all out. AUSA said, he wrote, I'm allowed to send my sister a gift. Did he? Mia says, no. What do you think D-Rock was trying to do? Mia says, find out for Puff if I was a threat. Did Mr. Combs text you in February of 2024? Mia says, yes. He said, call me when you have 10 minutes. Love. I guess that's how did he change his name?
Yeah.
And this one, February 7th of 2024, he said, I need my memory jogged. Did you respond? No. I didn't want anything to do with him. He was the person I was traumatized by. I knew that this was a front. Was this the last message? I think so. I got some objection. Diddy's defense. Judge says sustained. Do you work now? No, I suffer from complex PTSD.
Man.
Judge says sidebar. Uh-oh. What are your symptoms, AUSA says? Mia says, misinterpreting emails. Someone calls my name from across the room. All the feelings of getting in trouble come flooding back. I triple guess myself. I can imagine when someone is yelling, people have PTSD from everyday work environments where they've had a toxic work environment, a toxic boss.
Yeah.
Based off of just reading this summary of what she's testifying,
I worked with someone like that.
For her.
Yep.
All right. So she says, misinterpreting emails. Someone calls my name from across the room. All the feelings of getting in trouble come flooding back. I triple guess myself. So the judge says, Mr. Steele, you can put the binders on the jurors' chairs. Ms. Miser, do you have any objections? There's an exhibit we are questioning hearsay redactions to. We can hash it out. Judge says, put the binders on the chairs. All right. Cross-examination begins. Before we get to cross-examination, so what I want to do is just use NBC's summary of some of what we just said, because I feel like there are certain things, again, where we're relying on one particular journalist. What I've discovered in utilizing multiple sources and giving you a summary is that there are things lost. Even with Inner City Press, again, we appreciate the work that they're doing, but I also feel like there are some little moments, not even just little moments, there are certain things and stories that are missed because he's trying to transcribe things that he's hearing, okay? So I'd like to go back and see if the summary includes anything that we haven't said. Kathy Ventura had caught Combs cheating on her and left devastated and stopped answering his calls. Remember when they were in South Africa? And because she was shooting a movie. Mia said that she woke up to 48 missed calls and messages from Combs and others who worked for him. The jury got a look at Combs' alleged insatiable need for employees to respond immediately. The government showed an odd text conversation between Mia and Combs, with the defendant spouting off with 7 consecutive lines of "call me now." Mia testified about her recollection of a 2011 incident when she said that Combs reacted violently after he asked her to bring him some workout clothes, and the defendant allegedly lost it when he disliked all the options presented to him. He was just screaming and cursing at me and wouldn't stop, and then something violent happened. Mia said, though she couldn't remember the exact details of this alleged violent act. I can only imagine if you worked with him for years and it was always like this on any given day, you're not going to remember these details. God bless her for remembering half of the stuff that she does remember. She says that he was just screaming and cursing at me and wouldn't stop, and then something violent happened. When James Cruz, a Bad Boy manager, emailed Mia that day asking who in the company was handling Kids' Choice Award ticket requests, the witness responded, "I'd totally help, but he is currently firing me at the moment." Lord. In the fall of 2016, Combs no longer wanted to be involved in Revoked Films and wanted to end it, Mia testified. Revoked Films is a media company founded by Combs that Mia worked for as a director of development and acquisition. She said that she felt betrayed, confused, and rejected by the decision. She continued to work on a documentary project until spring of 2017. She testified that she was, quote, heartbroken by the decision to close Revoked Films, meaning she'd lose her position, and avoided calls from Combs and staff. She eventually hired an employment attorney to work out severance, which hurt Combs. After 9 months of back and forth, she ended up with a sum of $400,000, and she took home $200,000 with the attorneys taking the rest as compensation for bonuses owed, severance, and overtime.
Today, every business needs a website.
It's at 50% though?
This is what your business looks like.
Those are some expensive lawyers. They took 50%.
My goodness. After Ventura filed her lawsuit against Combs, Mia testified the defendant reached out to her, but she said that she steered clear of him. The government showed a February 7, 2024 email from Combs to Mia in which he used kind words in asking for a phone call to have my memory jogged on a few things. But Mia said that she didn't respond. "I was terrified," she said. "I know this was a front." Mia said that she believed Combs was fearful of her telling anyone what she'd seen the defendant do over the years. Because that Cassie lawsuit, again, he said, triggered what we are seeing now. And he knows what he's done with other people. And he knew how the world reacted. Mind you, this is even before the video of Cassie being dragged and kicked by Diddy in the Intercontinental Hotel hallways. This is February. That was, I believe, in March, May. It was like around that time. But this is definitely before. But we're talking a couple of months before this, in November of 2023, Cassie filed her lawsuit detailing everything. Honestly, I feel like Cassie didn't tell us everything, but she did. She told us enough, and enough for him to settle with her 24 hours later.
Yep.
So she said Puff wanted Combs security guard D-Rock to get to me and make sure I wasn't a threat. D-Rock, I'm sure they have subpoenaed him. When asked under direct examination if she works now, Mia said that she hasn't been able to because I suffer from severe, complex PTSD following her employment with Combs. She explained that the normal situations are overwhelming and that she feels triggered when someone asks, "Where are you?" or if someone says her name across the room. And now the defense will start their cross-examination. Before we get to that, just a reminder, guys, a nice, easy way of supporting our channel and the podcast. Like this video if you're listening to the podcast version.
All right, shout out to Kempire. Thank you, Kempire. We have been using Kempire for our daily updates. You guys head over to his channel when you get a chance and watch the remainder of the video so he can get his due views for all the hard work that he has done. Shout out to you, Kempire. We will be back the next time he covers trial day. I think he's going to go to 14. If not, maybe skip the weekend and then go to 13, 14, 15, probably 16. But I'll keep up with him to see if he drops anything tomorrow. If not, there might be a couple recaps that we'll go over and take a look at that. So shout out to Kempire. I just have to say, like, I agree with him when he's saying that Mia is strong for this, because a lot of people, it's not something that they want to deal with. Even the witness right now that's talking, you know, I wanted to take these things to my grave. You know, most victims of SA, sexual assault, they usually don't even tell their story or their side of the story. The statistics show between 50 and 60 years, which I thought I was baffled by this. I'm like 50 years old, 55, 60 years old. Like most of these women will really hold this stuff in that long. That is just, it's so insanely painful, and I just felt horrible. You know, so it's not easy. You know, some of the things this woman is describing, like complex PTSD. You know, oh, how can someone have like be going through something hard at work just because someone shouted their name across the room? Well, it's situational. It depends on, you know, it depends on the person and the things that they have been through and the situations that they have experienced. It's no different than a veteran, right, wanting to elbow somebody behind them, or even I don't know, grabbing their neck and front flipping them over their shoulder because they just have PTSD and a person standing right behind them. I can't tell you guys how many times I've seen that. You would think it would be a movie scenario, but I've actually seen it happen in real life, working around veterans, being around veterans who have PTSD. So I just think a lot of these victims that are coming out and sharing their stories, I know there are people out there that are going to make their excuses for Diddy. I mean, yeah, you know, like it's, you know, you can't really go to jail for this and that, and I get it, you know what I mean, but nonetheless, there's still probably going to be some repercussions, because one, we already seen the video, right? On top of the video, we already have that you tried to pay somebody off, right? On top of that, you already have at this point, four other victims talking about how manipulative he was. You have Kid Cudi describing him as a villain. You have all of these people that are painting these pictures. It could seem like it's nothing, right? But you have to remember, there's still a jury listening. There's still a prosecution of women, right? There's still a lot of fine details that if we just brush over them and think like, no, he's definitely going to walk, nothing's going to happen. I don't think that that's going to be the case. I don't think he's going to spend life in prison. I just don't, unless there's something that's going to come out that we are just totally oblivious to, or there's some type of special witness other than Cassie. But yeah, like a lot of this is brave. When you just know the statistics of how long it takes a sexual assault victim to come out and even tell their side of the story, it's like, yeah, that in itself is a miracle. So shout out to Kempire for the coverage. Appreciate you, man. All right, guys, switching gears now. We're going to go over to Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff Buell. Today on the menu, we have Charlie Kirk and ex-OnlyFans model go off about POR in industry, the adult industry. And they have a message for men and women. So let's take a listen.
Charlie Kirk and Nala Ray deliver powerful messages to both men and women. Watch this.
Stay there for a second. I have a message to men, and then I want you to give a message to women. Men, if you are consuming OnlyFans, it is no different than you going out with a prostitute every night. The only difference is that you guys get to hide behind some screen. You are contributing to the dehumanization and delegitimization of millions of young women that are nothing more. You are supplying the demand of the new online sex trade, and you need to stop doing it and repent in front of God for contributing to this awful cancer of selling your body for cash online. That is.
He's going to say that's his message to men. Now, Charlie Kirk's message to men, I thought it was great. She chimes in and she says, you're supplying the demand. 100% true. I was watching a live stream a while ago because Tim Ross talks about this often. Shout out to Tim Ross on Upset the World Studios. And he talked about that. He said, you know, if men were not watching any type of pornography, anything in the adult industry, this adult industry literally would not exist. It would not exist. And you know, I had people, it's so funny because whether I am on a panel of young adults, I'm doing it associated with some church, you will always have, you know, the young people asking certain questions to where it's like, oh man, like, why does it seem like it's the men, it's not, and it's never the women. It's not that it's never the women, it's the nature of the two, right? And here's the thing, women don't look at sex the same way that men do. They just don't. They don't process it the same way. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with guys that are my friends and I'm like, God, this guy's a complete idiot. you know, and it's like, because just some of the things that he's saying, and it's like, dude, it's not what you think, you know. I've literally had male friends say to me that there's you just don't know what you're talking about. Like there are women who are out there and they are like, you know, they want to have sex just as much as men, or think about it just as much as men. Because I talked to this girl, and on the first night I was able to, you know what, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, everyone has a backstory, everyone has context to them. And I would tell my guy friends, they would always get mad at me when I would say this, but I would tell this to them all the time, and I would say, those women that you got to sleep with, or whatever you got to do with the first night with them, I bet you if you take the time to actually get to know them and you dig around in the background of their history, I bet you there's some sexual assault there. I bet you that someone did something to them, or that they've experienced some type of pain in the SA area. I'm almost positive of it. And I can tell you right now, 8 to 9 times out of 10, I've been right. 8 to 9 times out of 10. Because a woman that is healthy, a woman that grew up in a 2-parent home, a woman who has a great relationship with her father, and she understands how much her father wants her and loves her and is there to protect her. And also, like, it's a totally different mindset than a woman that is not in that type of position. And, oh, by the way, who's also grown up with being sexually assaulted by a family member, a friend, or whoever have you. It's a totally different thing. So I thought that Charlie Kirk's message was very spot on when he says that, you know, the only difference is that it's no different than going out with a prostitute every night. You just get to hide behind some screens. Well, you know, you have some young women that will push back and be like, you know, I disregard that because I'm not a prostitute. I'm just doing this because I have to do this. Yes, there are some women that are doing certain things just to put themselves through school, just to put themselves through college, just to take care of their children and their single parents. So I can't go on there to say that every single OnlyFans model is a prostitute. I would never say anything like that, because I've just had friends that have been in really bad situations and they've done things that later on they're like, I regretted that I ever did it, or I had to do it. But they were just in that situation. Nonetheless, there is a certain perception that is being built about you and that is going to be out there if you're doing that with your body. And it's no different, you know, than it is with men, right? There is a certain perception about men out there too. It's just that at that point, it's the women judging them, right? And women are going to judge the scenario very differently than men looking at naked women, you know, having sex and looking at it in adult industry. I think the sad part about it is that everyone's gonna get clumped into a category. Even if you are someone, I'm not going to use the word I was going to use, and I'm not going to say the word it was a good word, but I don't think it's fitting. But even if you are someone who's trying to get yourself right and who's trying to set yourself up, you know, in a more dignified way, you are going to have opinions out there and perceptions out there about you if you're on OnlyFans, right? It would be no different than a male coming from the adult industry and then trying to go into church or serve in ministry, and a bunch of the women in the church know he came from the adult industry. He's going to have a certain perception about him. Certain people are going to be mumbling things about him. They're going to be groanings about him, right? So I'm not saying that I agree with every single thing Charlie said. I do agree with most of it, right? And he might not be saying, you know, all of those girls are prostitutes, but he's just saying, like, in the form that they are showing themselves and what they're doing to actually gain money. That's why that perception is being put out there. But he flat out tells the men, you are no different. What you're doing by watching these things, you're no different than someone who does go out with a prostitute every night or pays to go out with one. You're just hiding behind the screen, right? Spot on, 100%. She chimes in and says, you're supplying the demand. Shout out to Upset the World Studios with Tim Ross. Spot on, 100%. If men weren't fueling this type of thing, paying for this type of thing, indulging in this type of thing, then there's no way this industry would be as big as it is. I can guarantee you that. So now she has a message for women.
This is my message to men. What is your message to women that sell their bodies online?
Honestly, you're so much more worth it than that. I don't know who hurt you in your life, if you have daddy issues, mommy issues, but you were made for so much more in the eyes of God. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that is it. My God.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Charlie Kirk and Nala Ray deliver.
Yeah, Nala Ray, she goes on record to say, like, listen, I don't know if you have daddy issues or if you have mommy issues, but you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And she's just basically saying, like, you know, God has a plan for you and you don't have to do that. Like, it's funny because I'm so glad that this time it was a woman that said, I don't know if you have daddy or mommy issues, right? Because women cannot stand when they hear men say that, right? But when it's another woman that says it, it hits different. It lands different. And I can appreciate her saying that because a lot of that stuff does come from that. Parental issues run deep rooted. They run deep rooted, and when by the time you're an adult and they haven't been worked out, it's like you're not going to be the best wife or girlfriend. You're not going to be the best husband or boyfriend. Like, you have to go get that stuff worked out. You have to go see somebody. You have to repent, right, and be born again. There's a lot of things that have to be at play in order for you to be somebody who's worthy of another person who God deems as worthy, right? So I can appreciate the fact that she says, like, you're beautifully and fearfully and wonderfully made. These are all Bible verses, right, of what God says about his people and his children. And she's saying you don't have to do that. You don't have to go on OnlyFans and do what you're doing. You don't have to try to make money that way. But yeah, you have the world pushing this agenda, and it's so perverted and it's so twisted, and marriage has been perverted, and sex has been perverted, and it's okay to be poly A, B, C, and D, and it's all of this stuff, right? And then you have people who know nothing about scripture, and they try to come to me with, oh well, Solomon had this many wives, and it's just like, it's so sad to see. So I can just appreciate this woman. I can appreciate her being a woman and putting this out there, first of all. Because for her to say, listen, you're made this way, God has better for you, and I don't know if it's parental issues, but this is not what you have to do. Like, this is not the move. I can just appreciate it. When we have women that are that bold and courageous to step out and do things like that, we know that the Lord is working, right? We know that the Lord is like, he's on it about saving his people and his daughters and his son. So I'm extremely excited about that. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me on the live stream. We are going to be back tomorrow, Saturday. Last 2 weeks, I haven't been able to get on early on a Saturday. Tomorrow, I'm aiming to get on pretty early. Even if I can do 2 with you guys, I will. So until next time, guys, which is tomorrow, take care of yourselves, take care of one another. Love yourselves, love one another, and be peaceful. Peace.